There is a biological mystery standing in the American woods today that should not exist. It is a tropical ghost, a plant that survived the Ice Age by striking a deal with giants that are now long gone. This is North America's largest native fruit, and it contains 3 times the nutrition of an apple. Yet if you walk into any grocery store in the United States, you will find it is missing. It did not go extinct because of climate change or disease. It was erased by a $6 bet made during a game of golf in 1938. Today, we are uncovering the incredible story of the most nutritious food you have never tasted: the pawpaw. 10,000 years ago, the landscape of North America was home to creatures that look like they belong in a fantasy novel. Massive woolly mammoths, American mastodons, and giant ground sloths that stood 10 feet tall moved through the forests of the Ohio River Valley. These animals were the primary partners for a tree called the pawpaw. Its fruit is a biological anomaly, an evolutionary anachronism that is out of time. The pawpaw belongs to the custard apple family, a group of plants that almost exclusively lives in the deep tropics of Central and South America. While its cousins like the soursop and cherry moya require constant heat, the pawpaw is the only member that learned to survive freezing temperatures down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. In those ancient days, the pawpaw relied on megafauna to survive. The fruit is far too large, and the seeds are too heavy for modern birds or small mammals to spread effectively. These multi-ton giants would swallow the fruit whole, and the large bean-like seeds would pass through their massive digestive tracts unharmed. The animals would wander miles away and deposit the seeds in a pile of nutrient-rich fertilizer, allowing the pawpaw to march across the continent. But when the giants vanished at the end of the Pleistocene epoch, the pawpaw was left stranded. It survived by cloning itself, sending out root suckers to form dense thickets that can live for decades without ever moving an inch. But while the forest held this treasure close, its ancient partners were being replaced by a new kind of steward. Long before European explorers arrived, the indigenous nations of North America recognized the pawpaw as a sacred gift from the earth. The name of the genus, Asimina, is a direct link to the Algonquin word for the fruit, which is asimine. For tribes like the Shawnee, the fruit was so central to their survival that they named the month of September the Pawpaw Moon. This was the time for seasonal feasts, where the golden flesh provided a critical boost of protein and fat before the onset of winter. The relationship between indigenous people and the pawpaw was one of deep agricultural management. The Iroquois would mash the ripe pulp into small, dried cakes that could be stored for months. These cakes were perfect for long hunting trips, where they could be rehydrated into sauces or mixed into cornbread for extra energy. Beyond food, the inner bark was harvested and processed into incredibly strong ropes, string, and even fishing nets. The wood, which is light and porous like balsa, was the preferred material for starting fires with bow drills and hand drills. This ancient bond was so strong that many archaeological sites of the Fort Ancient and Hopewell cultures are still surrounded by unusually dense patches of pawpaws. It appears that wherever humans settled, the pawpaw followed. The first written account by a European comes from the De Soto expedition in 1541, where soldiers saw indigenous communities in the Mississippi Valley growing the fruit in managed groves. To the early settlers, it was a lifeline, a native treat that required no pesticides and grew where European fruit trees failed. However, the reason this fruit is a nutritional powerhouse goes far beyond its size. When scientists finally analyzed the pawpaw, the results were staggering. A single serving of pawpaw contains 3 times as much vitamin C as an apple and twice as much as a banana. It is one of the only fruits on the planet that contains all 9 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein source. But where it truly dominates is in its mineral content. The pawpaw has 6 times the amount of riboflavin as an apple and 14 times the niacin. It contains 10 times more calcium than a banana or an apple, and between 20 and 70 times more iron. This incredible density of nutrients is protected by a chemical armor that is currently rewriting the rules of modern medicine. The leaves, twigs, and even the seeds of the pawpaw are loaded with compounds called annonaceous acetogenins. These are potent natural insecticides that make the foliage so unpalatable that even starving deer will refuse to eat a pawpaw tree. But in the lab, these same chemicals have shown a terrifying efficiency at killing cancer cells. Cancer cells are unusual because they require massive amounts of energy to divide and spread. Acetogenins work by targeting the power plants of these cells, specifically a part of the mitochondrial chain called complex 1. By blocking this energy production, the acetogenins essentially starve the cancer cell to death from the inside out. Even more impressive, research has shown that these compounds can block a survival switch called hypoxia-inducible factor 1. This switch is what cancer cells use to call for new blood vessels to feed them. By cutting off the supply lines, the pawpaw tree provides a natural blueprint for future treatments. This chemical defense system does more than just protect the tree, it serves as a cradle for one of the most beautiful creatures in the American sky. The zebra swallowtail butterfly has evolved a singular, defining relationship with the pawpaw. Much like the monarch butterfly and milkweed, the zebra swallowtail caterpillar feeds exclusively on pawpaw leaves. As it eats, it absorbs those toxic acetogenins into its own body. This makes the caterpillar, and eventually the adult butterfly, completely distasteful to birds and other predators. Without the pawpaw tree, this elegant black and white striped butterfly would vanish from existence. Despite its beauty and its power, the pawpaw vanished from our modern world because of a tragic shift in technology. In the early 20th century, the pawpaw was still common fare in rural America. But in 1938, a brilliant inventor named Frederick McKinley Jones changed everything. Jones was challenged to build a mechanical refrigerator that could work on a moving truck after a shipment of chicken spoiled on the way to Chicago. He succeeded, creating the first successful mobile refrigeration unit and founding the company that would become Thermo King. This invention gave birth to the cold chain, the global system that allows us to eat strawberries in winter and oranges from thousands of miles away. But the cold chain had a price. To be profitable, a fruit must be durable enough to survive weeks in a warehouse and on a grocery shelf. Apples and oranges can last for a month or more. The pawpaw, however, follows its own internal clock. Once it reaches peak ripeness, it has a shelf life of exactly 2 to 5 days. It bruises if you even touch it firmly, and it continues to ripen rapidly after it is picked. Because it could not survive the 1,000-mile journey in a refrigerated truck, it was abandoned by the commercial food system. It was not a failure of taste or nutrition, but a failure of logistics. While the world of commerce forgot the pawpaw, a few dedicated seekers refused to let it go. In 1916, the American Genetic Association held a national contest to find the best pawpaws in the country. They offered $50 prizes for the largest tree and the best tasting fruit. 75 people sent in samples from across 26 states. The winner of the Best Fruit Prize was Mrs. Frank Ketter of Ironton, Ohio. Her fruit was praised for having a thick skin and a rich, golden flesh that was sweet but not cloying. Decades later, a graduate student named Neil Peterson rediscovered the records of this contest. He tracked down the descendants of those winning trees and spent 20 years breeding a better pawpaw. He eventually selected varieties with more flesh and fewer seeds, naming them after American rivers like the Shenandoah and Susquehanna. Today, these varieties are sparking a quiet revolution. From the Ohio Pawpaw Festival, which attracts 10,000 people every September, to small orchards popping up in backyards across the nation, the pawpaw is returning. The pawpaw is a living link to an ancient world, offering resilience right in your own backyard. Reclaiming this native treasure starts with a single planting. If this story inspired you, please subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and share helps preserve the wisdom the world tried to erase. We must remember our history.